Not the internet, in case. The internet. One score 90. 90. Somebody send this course.
Somebody
send this course.
90.
Yes.
Good. Acceptable?
Yes.
Right. And the people are 8. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I didn't bring my... Yeah. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. We formally welcome you to Cedro Nigeria Limited-EDI by 25 lecture series. Compliments of the season. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and New Year break and ready to start the new year with a lot of hope and confidence. We are also very, very confident around here, and then sure as it were that the project which we started last year, which we are continuing in the new year, will come to fruition and success for our participants. I'm sure you are all very familiar with the essence of this training program. Is to assess, as it were, the NASA microfinance collateral-free loan of the federal government. We all set out, as it were, to see how we can improve our sources of income, additional sources of income, or start new businesses. It is, well aware, a federal government strategy on how we can, as it were, build entrepreneurship in the country. And then, of course, expand the frontiers of employment, expand the frontiers of economic growth and development, and expand the frontiers of more and more of our young people and those who are losing their jobs, finding alternative means of livelihood. That basically is what is driving this Agmis program. We normally like to start this program with the picture that you see, the prompting picture that you see on the cover of this paper. It says, if your salary is your only source of income, you are one step away from poverty. That's an advice being given by an elderly gentleman to a young lady. We also like to subscribe to this advice. We've had cause to tell people that whatever it is that you're doing, if you're in employment, public or private, or you're self-employed, then you should have multiple streams of income, not just one source of income. Because if you are in just one source of income, the way things are going in the world today, in the country today, then you will definitely be facing some challenges because the cost of living, inflationary trends, and then of course with the pandemic ravaging the world, we all know what is happening all over the world today. Inflation is ravaging everywhere, and people are having challenges trying to make ends meet. Okay, we are also aware of the constant refrain of labor unions when they tell us that their take-home pay can't take them home. Okay, we're aware that not too long ago, there was an approval for a minimum wage increase of about 30,000 naira. Even that is being repudiated, as it were, by many state governments. Only just last week, Kano state government, Gombe, and a series of others backed away from paying the 30,000 naira, reverting, as it were, to the 18,000 naira minimum wage, with a claim that because of the inflationary trends, they cannot be able to afford it. So these are some of the realities facing our workers in the face. So our advice is that whether you're in public or private employment, you should try as much as possible to see if you can also be able to find some additional sources of income, not just relying on your salary. And to find additional sources of income, it means that you have to engage yourself in one form of entrepreneurial activity or the other. Either you go into agri or either you go into an SME project where you'll be able to earn something, but definitely you have to find an alternative. You have to find something, you have to diversify, you have to find something else you need to do, not just as it were reliant on only one source of income. So that's the advice this lady gentleman is giving a young lady, and that's the advice we also want to give you. We in fact want to believe that you have thought about that in the first place before coming on this program. Because we want to believe that all of you who are registered on this program are involved in one entrepreneurial activity or the other. And that is definitely a step in the right direction. Right. Having said that, let's continue with the main topic of this paper. It says entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for Agmis. The training that we provide, NASA Microfinance differentiates two different types of trainings. One is vocational training, and then of course entrepreneurship training. Vocational training, otherwise more of skills, hands-on skills acquisition. But entrepreneurship is basically about management, business management of small businesses, of businesses. So we are handling the entrepreneurial aspects of the two types of trainings that NASA Microfinance offers for those who want to access their loan scheme. So the first paper we always take in this course, the 5 days training, is to lay the foundation with the entrepreneurship training. Laying the foundation, giving the preliminaries of what entrepreneurship is all about, defining entrepreneurship, who is an entrepreneur, what does he do, and then giving examples of who entrepreneurs are, and then the things that you need to do, the kind of skills you need to have to pursue entrepreneurship, and all the way down. Then, of course, the most important one there is the Agmis. I'm sure you're all familiar with Agmis. Agmis is the agribusiness, small and medium enterprises investment scheme. That is the whole essence of the loan, is the loan scheme introduced by Committee of Bankers and Central Bank of Nigeria. So that is basically the scheme. Just like you have the Uncle Borrower scheme, so also you have the Agmis loan scheme for agribusinesses, small and medium enterprises. That's what Agmis stands for. But we'll be looking at more details on that subject as we go forward. So let's start by looking at the training objectives. What are the training objectives? First and foremost is to understand the Agmis loan scheme. Try to understand the Agmis loan scheme. We expose participants to the objectives, the components and processes of achieving the Agmis loan scheme. Okay. To understand the concept of entrepreneurship, we want to break it down for you so that you understand what entrepreneurship is all about. Then to expose participants to the skills required for entrepreneurship, and then to prepare participants for a life of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a short distance race. It's a marathon. Something that once you get involved in, you're involved in it for the rest of your life. It's not something that you just start and then stop in a short while. Okay. So we look at all of the expectations if you want to pursue a life of entrepreneurship. Right. So the outline. Let's look at the training outline. These are the the topics we'll be looking at in the course of this paper. One, defining Agmis, its objectives, components, and then the processes of attaining its goals. Then secondly, defining entrepreneurship. We define entrepreneurship, what entrepreneurship is all about. Then three, with the types of businesses and vocational skills that are available locally and I'm sure internationally. Then considerations before starting a business, things that you need to consider before you start a business. You don't because your friend, your colleague is into one line of business and you sit and then decide that yes, if it's going to be successful, if he's successful in this area, I can also do the same line of business, go into the same line of business and make a success of it. It doesn't work that way. There are things that you need to consider. There are things that you need to take into consideration before you jump into any line of business. Okay, so we'll try to look at those things that you need to consider. Then hurdles in the part of starting a new business. Whatever you do in life, life is about challenges, about ups and downs. I'm likely to find that there are certain obstacles that you might run into. Nothing is smooth sailing in this world. So we'll try to look at some of those obstacles so that you have them at the back of your mind and then be able to be preemptive in going about trying to go around some of those challenges so that you're not taken by surprise that well. Okay, then sources of funding for small and medium enterprises. What the present training you're undergoing is for you to be able to access one of those sources. So we're looking at some other sources of accessing funds, sources of financing for small and medium enterprises. So these are our course outline. These are the 6 basic topics that we'll be looking at in the course of this paper. Okay, all right. So let's get started. So we're getting started, starting with defining Agmis. What is an Agmis? What is Agmis? The acronym Agmis means Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. So that's the breakdown. So an acronym, of course, we know is a word that you create by picking the first letters of a sentence. So for Agmis, AG stands for Agribusiness, and the SME, of course, is Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. So that's what Agmis stands for. And how do you come about Agmis? It is an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria aimed at supporting the federal government agenda towards the promotion of agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises as vehicles for sustainable economic development and employment. What we're saying here basically is that the Agmis loan scheme is not exactly a federal government initiative. It is an initiative of the Committee of Bankers and CBN. Okay, they are the owners of the NISA Microfinance Bank. The Committee of Bankers has 50% shares in the bank. CBN has 40% shares, and NIPOS has 10% shares in the business. Okay, NIPOS 10% component is in the area of providing accommodation for NISA Microfinance Bank in all of their branches. NIPOS has 774 branches in all the 774 local government councils in the country. So which means wherever there is a NIPOS office, there is also there is supposed to be a NISA Microfinance Bank there. They are driving that process seriously, trying to ensure that the bank is represented in all of the local governments. The whole essence is to make NISA Microfinance Bank a rural banking institution, because we know that our rural areas are underbanked. If you go to most of our rural areas lately, what you see is a preponderance of POS machines, okay? POS machines where the major banks, deposit banks have linked up the various communities with POS machines where they collect and deposit money and then they are also able to pay out. Okay, so this is because the rural areas are underbanked. We don't have access to banking in those areas. So what the Committee of Bankers and CBN are trying to do is to ensure that the rural areas also have banking access to banks and then banking businesses where they can also be able to go and obtain loans at very, very friendly and minimal rates, interest rates, and then to see how they can be able to expand the business of small businesses in those localities. That is basically the drive. Secondly, the whole essence, of course, is the Committee of Bankers and CBN's own effort towards supporting the federal government agenda. And then, of course, the federal government agenda in this area is basically with respect to diversification of the economy and then employment opportunities for the teeming youths, Nigerians who are unemployed and those who are losing their jobs. Diversification of the economy in the sense that we're all aware that the federal government is dependent, as it were, for almost 90% of its, 95% of its export earnings and over 70% of its revenue on oil, on the oil sector. And the challenge in this area is that because of the mono nature of our economy, each time the oil sector runs into a problem, has a challenge, or there is a glut in the market, then of course Nigeria's economy gets hit. Okay, we're all witnesses to the experiences we've had in the last 1 year. The federal government, the Nigerian economy has gone into recession first in the first quarter of last year, and then of course towards the last quarter as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, which is ravaging the entire world. Okay, so most countries that are dependent on only one source of income or revenue had that similar kind of challenge. Nigeria, for example, and many other OPEC countries that are dependent on oil were worse hit. And worse hit because economic activities stopped all over the world. We all witnessed the shutdown of nations all over the world, the lockdown of countries all over the world, lockdown on economic activities, lockdown on international flights and all those kind of activities, which all of which are driven or powered by the oil sector. You know, we saw pictures of tankers and tankers of crude oil on high seas that could not be moved into those industrial countries of China, the US, and EU countries. Okay? All businesses were shut down. We saw airports with lines and lines and lines of aircraft not flying because international travels were banned and no movement all over the world. So oil prices that were selling at that point for about 40 barrels per liter came down to as low as under $20 per liter. Okay, so most of the oil producing countries, including Nigeria, most challenge of economies of most countries went into recession. And that was also not peculiar to Nigeria. And this is because Nigeria, as it were, is dependent solely on the oil sector. So what needs to be done, the federal government has been mounting this policy for a long time, that we need to diversify our economy away from oil. And the areas they've identified for this diversification is agricultural businesses, because agriculture is so vast. Okay, the mainstay of Nigeria's economy before the oil industry started booming was agriculture. Till to date, agriculture still remains the mainstay of Nigeria's economy, with over 70% of Nigerians involved in agricultural businesses, even if it's at subsistence level. Okay, we'll be looking at some of the statistics to show the place of agriculture today in the nation's economy. And then secondly, in the area of SMEs, it has been proven that SMEs are the backbone, the bedrock of most economies across the world. Okay, so if we want to diversify our economy, these are the areas we should be looking at. And those are the areas that the CB and the Committee of Bankers are trying to support the federal government in pursuing diversification. And their own idea is that by setting up this NASA Microfinance Bank to provide this Agmis loan scheme, where individual citizens can be able to access collateral-free loans at very moderate interest rate, they will be able to, as it were, go and start their own businesses, start their own entrepreneurial businesses, and then start the process of diversifying the economy. More and more of the people going into agricultural businesses, small and medium enterprises, to see how we'll be able to build that sector of the economy. So that is basically a background of how the Agmis loan scheme came on board. Okay, so what are the objectives of the Agmis loan scheme? First and foremost, to ensure small and medium enterprises and agricultural businesses as well have access to finance. That's the first and foremost thing, because we find that most small and medium enterprises and those who want to go into agribusinesses find difficulty in accessing finance, accessing funding. Okay, most of you are on this program today have the idea, you want to start this business, you have this business idea, but then when you look around, By the time you explore your immediate family and friends, you've approached them for finances and things like that, you find that you need more. And then where do you get this facility from? If you go to the banks, they are charging about 26 to 30% interest rate. Okay, what kind of business are you going to do to be able to pay an interest of about 30% on a loan facility? Okay, so the Agmis loan scheme is such that it is collateral free, and then the interest rate is as low as 9% starting from this year. So that is where the advantage is. So basically, it is to provide finances for those who want to go into entrepreneurial activities. To generate much needed employment opportunities. That's the second most important objective of this loan scheme. I've just talked about the challenges that we're having. You're all aware that today in Nigeria, we keep generating and producing more and more graduates out of our universities, out of all our tertiary institutions, okay, that come out after NYC and they are left unemployed, okay? They can't find any job, okay? And then, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has also led to many businesses shutting down, okay? Many industries shutting down. We're aware of banks that have shut down branches, and shutting down branches, they have also laid away staff in those branches. So many people have lost their jobs in the process. So one of the ways that the Committee of Bankers and CBN thought there can be of assistance is by providing access to this easily affordable loan scheme, where people cannot be able to access the fund and start their own businesses and then become also employers, okay? Not just job seekers, but also people who start and initiate their own businesses and are able to employ other people also. Then to boost the managerial capacity of agribusinesses and SMEs as pipelines for growing enterprises that can become huge corporations. So what we are doing here, basically the 5-day training, like I said, entrepreneurship training is basically about business management. So what we try to do here is providing you with that managerial capacity, managerial skills for you to be able to manage your businesses. Okay, we're starting with the entrepreneurship, which is basically laying the foundation for the rest of the course. By tomorrow, we'll be looking at feasibility studies and business plan. Okay, before you start a business, you have to do some feasibility studies. You have to develop your business plan, how you intend to run that business. The next day, we'll be looking at financial planning and basic bookkeeping. Okay, how do you plan your finances? How do you manage your finances? How do you keep your books? Okay, how do you keep your financial books? You don't just start a business and as the money is coming, you are just spending and things like that. You have to have an idea of how your finances are managed. You have to have an idea of how you carry out the accounting duties of that business. Okay, then we'll be looking at marketing effective sales and the marketing strategies. How do you sell your products? If you are producing anything, an entrepreneur, you're into agribusinesses, you are producing, you have products, you are producing things. How do you market them? What kind of strategies do you adopt? How do you get them to the market? You don't just produce and leave them in the factory or in the fields. But you have to, when you produce, you have to take it to the market. The strategies you adopt for things like that. Okay, and then of course we're looking also at business law. Okay, that's how you register your business, how you manage your business, the compliance requirements you require to be able to run a business in the country. All of these things are the things we'll be looking at. So these are supposed to provide you with some of the managerial capacity that you require in managing your business. That's basically what this training is all about, okay? And then to develop agricultural value chain and ensure sustainable agricultural practices. For those of you who want to go into agriculture, remember the two core components of this scheme is agricultural businesses and then small and medium enterprises. For those who want to go into agriculture, the entire agricultural value chain is very, very important that we understand what it entails. Agricultural value chain agriculture is not just about crop farming. Agriculture is a whole gamut of activities, okay? That starts very well from the very, very essence of planning the kind of agricultural business you want to go into. If you just want to go into crop farming, fine. Crop farming is an entirely different field in itself. So you have to be looking at how you get the seedlings for the crop, how you cultivate the field, the kind of machineries you require. Those are part of the things that you require in crop farming. But the entire agricultural value scheme involves, in the first place, the whole idea of what kind of business you want to go into, the kind of machinery you require, the implements, the fertilizer, the marketing, and the advertising and all of that. That is the agricultural value chain. It's a very, very wide chain. So you could decide to go into just one component of it. You could decide to go into the crop farming, you could decide to go into the farming business of it, or you could decide to go into the marketing component, or you could decide to go into the processing. All those are the value chain that's involved in agriculture. So when you say agricultural value chain, you're looking at the whole gamut, the totality of the activities involved in agriculture. So those are the things that those are the objectives of the Agmis scheme. Okay, components of Agmis. Let's look at the components of Agmis now. What are the components of Agmis? Remember, we defined Agmis. We said Agmis is an acronym, okay, and we define it as agribusiness, small and medium enterprises, okay, as a vehicle for economic development and employment. So let's look at the agribusiness component of Agmis. Okay, in 2019, agriculture contributed around 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP, surpassed only as it were by industry at 27.38% and services at 49.73%. Remember, I just said earlier that Nigeria's economy is basically, agric was the mainstay of Nigeria's economy, okay? And that the contribution of agric is way beyond what we get from oil. Although Nigeria depends heavily on the oil sector for its budgetary revenue, okay? With 95% of its export earning from oil, and over 70% of government revenue derived from oil. Nigeria is still predominantly an agricultural society with 70% of its population in agricultural production. Okay, so Nigeria, the oil sector, despite the high percentage of the earnings, contributes less than 10% to Nigeria's GDP. Okay, in 2015 it was just 9%. In 2016 it was 8%. Third quarter of last year, when the MBS released its statistics, it showed that the oil sector still contributed just about 8.6% to national GDP. Meanwhile, agric at that same time contributed about 30% to Nigeria's GDP. So if the contribution of agric is that high, more than double the contribution of oil to the GDP, then if we're talking about diversifying, we then should know the kind of direction we should be heading to. Okay, our concentration should therefore be in the area of expanding the agricultural activities of the country, not just sit down and rely, as it were, on oil sector. And each time there is a crisis in the international oil market, then of course we run into challenges. And then of course we know the projections coming on in the year 2030, 2015, when most of the industries, especially the automobile industry, will be moving away from the use of oil to power the vehicles across the world. Okay, so which means that we have this over 10, 20 years running ahead of us to begin to do something, not just paying lip service to diversification, but taking serious concrete action towards those diversification efforts. Okay, so we have identified agric as a major source of GDP, and we should, as it were, push in that direction to make sure that we actually take advantage of it and build consistently along that line of development. It is this trend that the government wants to leverage on with its renewed focus on agricultural sector in an attempt to diversify the economy. So the trend here we're talking about is the trend of the input of agriculture to the national GDP, okay? Growing from 21.9% in 2019 to 30% in 2020, okay? So we see the direction that we should go, okay? While that of oil is diminishing, the contribution to GDP is diminishing from the oil sector, we should be seen to be promoting agricultural sector where the GDP is increasing in that direction, okay? So this is what informed the current government's effort and devoted energy to initiatives like the Anchor Borrowers Program and now the Agmis. I'm sure you are familiar with the Anchor Borrowers Program. The Anchor Borrowers Program is another CBN initiative where it's providing financing and easy loans to people who are going into rice production, okay? And the activities of CBN in that direction has seen the monumental increase, immense increase in rice production in the country. Okay, we're all familiar with the stories of the wonderful revolution going on in states like Kebbi, states like Ebonyi, Anambra, Benue, Ogun, Lagos, and all of that. Lagos and Kebbi State partnering, producing the Lake Rice Initiative. Okay, these are all a function of the Anko Borrowers Fund, where the bank is providing very easily accessible loan at very low interest rate to farmers. Okay, and then bringing them together as cartels, encouraging the establishment of rice processing factories all over KB and the far north countries. Dangote and people and also providing such. Olam industry providing vast fields where they bring in outgrowers who they provide with seedlings, rice seedlings, provide with the implements, fertilizer, and all of that, and then giving them, each of them, not less than 3 hectares, which they farm, and then they come in as to buy them as off-takers. Okay, so the people are provided with the field to farm, the seedlings, the implements, the fertilizers, and all of that. They farm it, and when they harvest, the rice processors come as our off-takers and buy them off there. So the farmers are basically not doing anything in terms of maybe going to the market to sell their products, because they are off-takers. They are the ones that provided them. They are the outgrowers. They brought together by these rice millers, and then they are the off-takers, buying off them also. So that has changed the story of rice in this country. Today, Nigeria is the #1 rice producer in Africa, whether I like it or not, and is the 8th largest producer of rice in the world. Okay, so we're all aware of the kind of importation that will be importing rice into this country, building the economies of countries like Thailand, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and the rest of the world, okay, India and the rest of those Far East countries. But today, with the ban on the importation of rice, even when the boundaries were just recently opened, still there is a ban on the importation of rice and poultry products, okay? So that has, as it were, that is basically to be able to continue to improve, encourage the farmers, and then improve the production of our own rice capacity, so that Nigeria also will become an exporter of rice also, not just a net importer of rice, where we spend most of our external reserves, okay? So that has helped substantially in keeping our foreign reserve in place, and in fact, even increasing it as we saw recently. So this is the direction to go. And taking a cue from what the Anko Borrowers has done, that is what the Agmis loan scheme also seeks to do. Okay, so that is the direction the federal government is pursuing with respect to diversification. And we pray and hope that if they remain consistent in it, without changing that direction and without caving into the pressures to allow for importation, we should be able to make some very, very important milestone in that area. So this drive is a recognition of the contribution of agriculture to economic development and economic growth and development, in increasing food for the expanding population, increasing the demand for industrial products, providing local exchange earnings for import of capital goods, and then increasing social income in providing employment and welfare for the citizens of this country. What we're saying basically here is that the drive, that's the drive for agricultural development, the drive to improve agriculture, is a recognition of its contribution to economic growth and development. Again, in providing food for the expanding population, ours is a country of over 206 million people. Population keeps growing exponentially, okay? And there's no way any country can possibly depend on importing food for that kind of growing population. Where are you going to get the money from? Who is going to give you all that food? Okay, the moment any country finds that you are dependent on them for your own food requirement, then of course you know that you're under a whole lot of risk. That's why we talk about food security. Okay, a country and other countries will bring you down when they know you are dependent on them for feeding. Okay, food has been used as an instrument for war as well aware in history. So no country will want to subject itself to that kind of situation where it has to be dependent on others for its food needs. So we need to, as it were, make sure that we're able to provide for our own, for our feeding of our growing population. And then, of course, as a source of industrial products, because as we produce, these are raw materials for our industrial products also. And then, of course, providing local exchange, as we export these food items, as we export our agricultural produce to the external world, we are also able to earn foreign exchange, which we now use in importing capital. So these are the things that, those are the kind of symbiotic relationship that we have in agriculture. You expand, you have it as raw material for an industrial product, you export it, and then you earn foreign exchange, and then you are also able to import the capital goods that you don't have for your manufacturing sector. And then, of course, the social income. We have stories of the farmers. So many of them, even on TV this morning, we were watching people who say from their farming, fishing, and all of that in the Northeast, they were able to send their, go on pilgrimages, send their parents on pilgrimages, buy cars and things like that. But because of the crisis in that area today, they are having those challenges. And it's the same story where it's coming out of stories coming out of Kebbi State also, where many of the people who have been taken off the streets and taken to the farms are also telling virtually the same kind of story. They're able to go on pilgrimage on their own without having to depend on government, buy vehicles, home appliances, and all of the kind of income they previously were not able to access. And then, of course, the employment opportunities it has provided, which has also the collateral of the improving the welfare of its citizens. So it is these gains that explain the need to support the growth and expansion of agri and agro-allied business and its associated value chain. So the gains are monumental, the gains are immense, and it is just right that we should also be able to support it. And it is just right that you as participants in this program should see the advantage of that and see how you can go into it, okay? So let's look at the second component of Agmis now. We have looked at the agri-business as side of it. Now let's look at the SME component. The SME, of course, we say is the small and medium enterprises. So what is the SME component of Agmis? The SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies, as well as an important contributor to employment, economic growth, economic and export growth. Here, the one point I want you to note here is that SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies. We're not saying developing economies, developed economies. What it's saying basically is that even among the developed economies, is the SME that is the backbone of their economies, their employment opportunities, their economic and export growth. How? Most of the major industries, corporations that we see across the world today started as SMEs, okay? Let's take the example of Apple, for example, the Apple computer. Today we call it Apple Corporation or simply Apple. It started as Apple Computer, it became Apple Corporation. Today it's simply called Apple, okay? The moment you say Apple today, most people don't even confuse it with the Apple fruits. Apple today represents an electronic company, okay? But it started as an SME between two friends, okay? Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in the garage of their parents. That is where they started the Apple computer. Today, it has moved from being Apple Computer to Apple Corporation and simply Apple. Today, when you talk about the iPhone, the iPads, the iWatch, the iPods, those are all Apple products. Today, the Apple has a revenue base of about $21 trillion compared to Nigeria. That is just about $448 billion. That is one corporation. The Microsoft company, for example, where Bill Gates was at last month, the world's richest person, is also started in the garage of his parents. When he projected and said within a decade, he wants to see computers, microcomputers on the desktop on the desks in every office and every home in the US. He approached IBM laughed at him and told him off. But today, prophetic, that's what is happening. There is no computer that you buy today that you don't have a Microsoft product in it. That is an SME. Today we are talking about Facebook, who just started in 2004. Today it has over 6 billion users, and over 2 billion users, and over 6 billion in annual revenue. As at last week, Tesla, I will show you the statistics further as we go further down. Tesla has become the largest car manufacturing company in the world, started by a South African American today, Elon Musk. Okay, so these are small enterprises that are today the major businesses, major
Yes, sir. Yes, sure. Yes. We stopped here. Yes. Your mic.
Start my video. So stop your video. Sorry for the little break. Yeah, what's on the third point I was making, I was saying that according to the Nigerian SME survey by PricewaterhouseCoopers 2019, in Nigeria, SMEs contribute 48% of national GDP. Okay, account for 96% of businesses and 48% of employment. What we're saying here basically is, again, we're making comparisons. Okay, remember we said agriculture is at third quarter of last year. The NBS report says agriculture was contributing 30%. The SME, on the other hand, is contributing 48% to national GDP. Okay, and 96% of businesses and 48% of employment. This is massive. When you compare it to the oil sector, that contributes less than 10%. So in any country, any society, any line of business that contributes this much to our GDP is the direction to go. That's where to go. Okay, that's where to go. Not the one that brings in less, even if the revenue that is bringing is much. But you know it's a volatile kind of revenue. So you need to bring more and more people into that line where the contribution to GDP is much higher. Okay, and then of course it has much longer period of gestation and potentials, because that is what it is. Okay, so that is the direction to go. Where you have an industry that is contributing that much, then of course naturally you know that's the direction to go. SMEs in Nigeria constitute a total number of about 17.4 million enterprises. They account for about 50% of the industrial jobs and nearly 90% of the manufacturing sector in terms of enterprises. So these are monumental statistics that we're seeing, about 17.4 million jobs, okay? Accounting for 50% of industrial jobs. So most of the industrial jobs you find in the country today are SME driven, okay? Nearly 90% of the manufacturing sector. Here, when we talk about 90% of manufacturing sector, basically we're saying that, look, most of the major manufacturing businesses that we know in Nigeria, from the automobile to most of the auto industries, most of the major industries, most of them have left the country. We are aware of most of them have moved to the neighboring countries because of the very difficult economic situation we find in the country. Okay, but the smaller ones that are still existing are SME driven. Okay, we're all aware that companies like Dunlop, Michelin moved out of the country. We're all aware that in the textile industry, most of our textiles, you go to you go to Ikeja industrial area, most of the factories there have moved. We have been taken over by churches. Okay, if you go to Kaduna, the entire Kakuri that used to be a textile, a whole chain of textile, they're all dead. All you see there is overgrown with weeds. If you go to Kano, the Sherada industrial estate, they're all gone. They are dead. Okay, that is the main manufacturing sector. The main manufacturing sector, virtually gone. But then 90% of what we have as manufacturing today are basically SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, not the large-scale manufacturing that we used to know in this country before, where you have a company like the Style Motors, like the Amanco, the Volkswagen in Lagos, and the one in Ibadan, and Leyland in Ibadan, and all of those. They are all gone. Peugeot is struggling. Basically just bringing CKDs and coupling them together. But in terms of the manufacturing sector, as we know it today, 90% of it is SME driven. Okay? According to the National Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDA, the SME sector in Nigeria is strategically positioned to absorb up to 80% of jobs, improve per capita income, increase value addition to raw material supply, improve import earnings, enhance capacity utilization in key industry, and unlock economic expansion. So this is the potential that the SME sector in Nigeria has. Okay, strategically positioned to absorb up to 80%. We're talking about unemployment situation. But if we are able to build that SME sector, okay, it has the capacity to take up to 80% of the job requirements that we have in the country. And of course, we know that what that means to our per capita income. And then, of course, the raw materials that we produce, which as it will be processed before we talk about exporting them. So these are the key things that the SME sector stands to contribute to the national economy. And that is, when you find a situation like that, that is the direction to go. So what is the government doing about it? It is this potential. That's the potential of the agribusiness and then the SME that the government wants to explore and expand. But you realize that there is a missing middle. Okay, you realize that there exists a missing middle, which is that SMEs still find it hard to access funds. Okay, the government has explored the situation. It knows that the potential for diversification is there for the agribusiness and the SMEs. But the problem that people find, you and I find, that's why we're attending this program now, is that there exists a missing middle. And what is this missing middle? The missing middle it has identified as access to funds. Now it is hard to access funds. Okay, so what does it do? The Agmis loan scheme is therefore the government's response and solution to the missing middle. Okay, providing affordable and easily accessible funds to this vibrant and explosive sector with a very high potential to be a major backbone for Nigeria's economic development and growth. So government's solution or resolution is that, look, for us to be able to bridge this gap, for us to be able to explore and expand on this line of activity, there's something that we need to do, okay? Close the missing gap. And the missing gap is providing easily accessible funds, easily accessible financing for those who want to go into entrepreneurship, who want to go into agribusinesses, who want to start their own businesses, who want to be self-employed and be able to employ others. That is what the Agmis loan scheme is all about, okay? Right. So, all right, so we have finished the introductory part of this topic. The next section is the entrepreneurship. But before we do so, I'll open the floor so that if you have any questions, you can ask your questions, then we can have some little discussion before we move to the next section. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please just unmute yourself and then ask your question. All right, unmute and then ask a question. If you have any question. Madam Judith, you want to unmute? Please have them unmute. All right.
Good morning.
Yeah, Madam Judith. Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning, Madam.
Please, sorry to take you back. You know, because of the technical issues, I started on time, but when you started, I couldn't get you. So I don't know if you can just details.
Sorry, I broke you.
Summary of the topics and what you've taught today. I was able to gain access about maybe 10:40 or so. If you can just summarize, well, I can wait if other people have other reasonable questions to ask, but at the end,
that's like going back and starting all over again.
No, it's not. I don't mean that, please, sir. No, they can ask questions, but maybe towards the end, you can just give us summary. Let's just get hint of what they've done. You know, today is the first day.
All right, no problem. We'll do that. If there are other questions. So yeah, all right.
Yes,
other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Techno Power. Can you write your names, please, so that we'll be able to identify you? I can see Techno Power, Techno Spark, Techno Power 3A. All right, yeah. Okay, go ahead now.
Yeah. And my question is
can you give us your name, please?
My name is Oka for Peace Chinwe.
Oka for Peace Chinwe. Okay.
Yes. So I was not.
Speak out a bit. Speak out a bit.
I couldn't connect on time, so
Okay.
I almost joined halfway because of my system and other things. I don't know, like the first person said, if I get a kind of backlog of what you did from the beginning, because we didn't get to, because I don't know, it's very important for us to get it from the beginning to where you stop in this module.
Okay. Any other question? TechnoSpark 5. TechnoSpark 5, the gentleman. Yeah, okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can we have your name, please?
Richard Ofemu.
Okay, Richard Ofemu.
Yeah, my question is that most of these SMEs, just like having the analogy of all your lectures that you talked about, the SMEs now being the catalyst for development, you know. But most of our manufacturing big companies that we used to have, like you highlighted, Volkswagen and the rest of them have gone extinct, Dunlop and the rest of them. Don't you think too that even these SMEs, even when they are giving funding, will they not fall into the same problems that these manufacturing companies can into? I don't know if you get my question.
Yeah, I get
my
your
question.
question.
Is, what I'm saying in essence is that, yes, some of these manufacturing companies, like you mentioned, most of them multinationals, you know, went into extinct in Nigeria because maybe of the business climate in Nigeria. I said, now that we're not trying to promote the SMEs, will the SMEs not fall into the same problems that those ones fell into? And what are those things that we can do to ensure that the SMEs stand afloat?
All right, thank you. You know, the issue of the major manufacturing companies is the challenge that we had with respect to especially the area of power. You know, any society where you don't have the power, you're not able to overcome power, then of course the challenge will be there. And these are major manufacturing outfits, okay, with so much foreign capital components, okay? Where you have that kind of situation, then basically you are likely to run into problem if you don't have the infrastructure necessary for that, to support that line of business. Power is one of our major problems that we have in the country, and it still has remained a challenge for us in the country up to today. And if we're not able to overcome that, then the likelihood of us succeeding going forward is always going to be there. But we're looking at the SMEs. The SMEs, like I say, start small, okay? They are small and medium enterprises. They are not your large-scale kind of businesses. These are businesses that you start mostly domestic first before you now start moving out to do some other things. And it's the aggregate of all of them that make the difference. But then the most important thing is the consistency, our ability to remain consistent in pushing that line of business, not just that you start and then you blossom overnight. The consistency, the long drive, that's why we say it's a lifelong enterprise, and that's how the direction to go. But the major industries that we lost are basically because we are not able to provide the necessary capital to support it. The importation, the raw materials that you have to bring in, those are massive, okay? Though we have the market, but then we don't have the foreign reserve to be able to support it. That's where the challenge is. And then of course, the issue of power that, as I said, there's no way you can drive a major manufacturing company like the automobile industry depending on generators. Generators, of course, there's no way you'll be able to break even in that area of business. And that's what drove most of these companies out of the country. But the moment you are able to overcome the power issue, I believe we'll be able to make the difference in that area. The small SMEs, well, the SMEs are doing. We'll be seeing examples of them as we go down the line. We'll be looking at the SMEs across the world and SMEs in the country today, and we'll see what they are doing, and we'll see how they are progressing, how they are holding their own also. So we'll give the examples. It's not that we don't have SMEs that are turned out to be major corporations today. We have our SMEs today that are competing across the African continent and across the world today. You'll see them. Okay, so we'll look at it and then we'll see how the difference that it's making as it were now. Okay. Right.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, welcome, sir. Any other question? So that can go back and then, yeah.
The other question that I would have asked, I think you've already wrapped it up in the areas of the agro section. That's the agro development things.
Okay.
Don't you think that now that you mentioned most farms, large farms, maybe Lagos State government doing very well in rice production, and that's jointly with Kebbi State government producing the lake rice. If you watch over the television, just like you highlighted, you see a lot of flooding in some of all these areas. I don't know too whether this scheme we are trying to develop will take into cognizance of trying to ensure some of these farms. I mean, separate from what the what they call it, the CBN program is trying, Akomboros are trying to do. Is there any scheme for ensuring this fund for that as a component of what you are doing?
Yes, there's insurance to it. This NISA itself, NISA is the National Risk Sharing Strategy for Agricultural Business. That's what NISA, the main NISA stands for, not the NISA Agri-DC. So NISA is basically an insurance kind of scheme that tries to take care of insurance of agricultural businesses. They find a way of collaborating with farmers and agriculturists and those who are investing in agriculture to see how they're able to share the risks involved in the venture. Okay, so definitely if CBN is providing those kind of facilities, there is an insurance component to it. And then of course, I think we're learning by the day the challenges of the flooding. These are things that definitely should be addressed and have been addressed so as to be able to find a way of providing some kind of damming situation where the perennial flooding that we keep seeing damaging farms will be addressed. But it's a challenge really that has been persistent in the country for quite some time now. We know that rice, of course, needs water, but not the quantity of water that we see in the area of flooding. But I believe that these have been addressed as it were gradually. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Right, thank you, sir. So let's quickly go back and then look at some of the issues that our participants have raised with respect to a quick summary of what we did. All right, unmute. All right, so let's quickly look at, we started, of course, I don't know whether you people saw the training outline. We said we're going to start by looking at what Agmis is all about, then defining entrepreneurship, types of businesses. What we have done so far is in the area of defining the Agmis scheme. Okay, so let me quickly go through. I did give a breakdown. I say Agmis is an acronym. An acronym we all know is the word formed from the first letters of a sentence. So for Agmis, it stands for Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. And I did explain that it's an initiative of the CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, and Committee of Bankers to support the federal government agenda on diversification and then employment. That is basically what it's all about. It's the initiative, the Committee of Bankers and CBN. I said they are the owners of NASA Microfinance Bank. NASA Microfinance Bank is the institution that is managing this loan scheme, the Agmis loan scheme. And it was set up by the Committee of Bankers and CBN to be able to carry out these services. And basically, the Committee of Bankers has 50% shares in the bank, CBN has 40%, and NIPOS has 10%. NIPOS component is in the area of providing accommodation for the bank across all its branches in the country, the 774 local government areas. It's trying to push it as a rural banking institution where people in the rural areas are underbanked so that they will be able to have access to funds and then finances. That is what led to that's the initiative that led CBN and Committee of Bankers to set up that bank. Okay, and then here we looked at the objectives of the Agmis loan scheme. We said the first and foremost objective is to provide access to finance. that one of the challenges most people who want to go into entrepreneurship, SME or agribusiness have is having access to finance. Okay, so for you to be able to have the access, because if you go to the bank, for example, today, you have a business idea, you go to the bank today and you want to access fund, you will be asked to come and pay about between 26 to 30% interest rate, which is quite prohibitive. Okay, don't know what kind of business you'll be doing to be able to make that kind of money to be able to pay back and then stay afloat. So, but with the Agmis loan scheme, the interest rate today is just at 9% starting this year. And then of course it's collateral free. You don't have to bring any collateral. You don't need any guarantor and things like that. That is why, that is one of its objectives. And then to generate needed employment. I gave the example of many of our young couples who graduates who graduate after service are not able to find any white collar jobs and then are roaming the streets here and there. Many, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, also lost their jobs because many businesses shut down. So their own approach is to see how they can be able to provide these easily accessible phone loans so that people can be able to access them and then start their own businesses and then start their own, be able to be self-employed and maybe employ others. That's the area of employment. And then of course, we talked about this training providing managerial skills for participants, because the training, like we said, covers areas basically about business management. And then for those who are going into agriculture, we talked about the agricultural value chain, which is quite robust, not just farming, but also involves farming, marketing, sales, processing. That is the agricultural value chain, okay? Then components of Agmis, we did give a breakdown. I want to believe that you are part of this from this point. Give the breakdown of what the agri component of Agmis is all about. We talked about the percentage contribution of agri to the GDP compared to that of oil. Agri was contributed about 30% to national GDP. That of oil is less than 70%, even though it provides about 90% of our export earnings and over 70% of our revenue. But in terms of GDP contribution, it is less than 10%. So if you want to go in the area of diversification, agri is the line to go. Okay, and we said that the government has also identified that, and that is why it's pushing the Ancoboras program in the area of promoting rice production, and now the Agmis loan scheme for agri and then SMEs. Okay, then of course we looked at the SME component, which is what we just finished discussing. I want to believe that I've covered all of that now. Have I covered it? If I've covered it, can you just show with a wave of hand? Madam Judith and Madam Okafo. Are you okay? Show with a wave of hand. All right, thank you then. All right. All right, so we'll go to the second segment now. All right. So the second segment, and then this main segment here is entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? Can you people help me by defining what entrepreneurship is? Your understanding of entrepreneurship? You're all entrepreneurs. Just go to the chat box. Okay, we have a chat box, and then help me define entrepreneurship. Okay. So let me give us 2 minutes. Let me see who will help me with defining entrepreneurship. You're all entrepreneurs. You're into one form of entrepreneurship or the other. So maybe help me define entrepreneurship. I'm checking the chat box now. Go to the chat box. Okay. Yeah, I can see. Honey Judith. Please, can we get a soft copy? Yes, Madam Judy, you get a soft copy, but help me define entrepreneurship first. You get a soft copy, you'll find the soft copy on the, you find the soft copy. Looks like this. Nobody has responded? Okay, while you are waiting at that, let's see. All right, so what is entrepreneurship? It's not responding. Okay. All right, so let's define entrepreneurship. So they are not ready to help me. Okay, I can see some responses are coming now. All right. Okay, the process of starting a business by identifying a need, maybe in your immediate environment and seek to meet it. Beautiful. Judith, entrepreneur setting up business with the aim of making profit. Beautiful. Thank you very much. I think these are very good responses there. Process of starting a business by identifying a need, maybe in your immediate environment and seek to meet the need. Beautiful. Entrepreneurship is setting a business with the aim of making a profit. That's right. Okay. Entrepreneurship is the process of starting and running a business. That's exactly the definition. I don't know who gave that definition, but that's exactly what you've said there. Okay. It involves investing capital. Capital is your resources. Capital, like that's your money, your finances, in resources like people, and in development of products and services to create viable economic enterprise. That is what entrepreneurship it's about. The moment you take your money and invest in resources, people are resources, okay? Products are resources, services are resources to establish, to create an enterprise. That is entrepreneurship, okay? It is the capacity and willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. That's what entrepreneurship is all about, okay? You start a business, okay, with a motive, a profit motive, okay? And in pursuing that profit motive, there are bound to be challenges, there are bound to be risk, and you are ready to take that risk, okay? That is what entrepreneurs do. That's what entrepreneurship is all about, okay? It is investing your resources in people to develop products, to develop services, okay? To create an enterprise. And it is also that drive that you want to make money, you want to make profit, but then there are risks to take to be able to make that money. Okay? That's what entrepreneurship is all about. The most obvious example of entrepreneurship is starting a new business. Anytime you start a new business, that is entrepreneurship. Then what is the entrepreneurial spirit? It is characterized by innovation and risk-taking. It is an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global market. What we're saying here basically is that the world is an international global marketplace, and all the nations of the world are striving to have a cut of that market, are striving to have a pie of that market. Not necessarily the nation as a nation state by itself, but the citizens of that country. They are all striving, developing various enterprises to be able to have a share of the international market. Today, we see the stiff competition between the US and China. Okay, it's not so much between the US itself and China, but the citizens of US and China, they are all over the world trying to carve out for themselves their own marketplace. Today, we see competition between Huawei, for example, that international Chinese IT company that is driving the 5G technology, being restricted by US and many EU countries because it is having an edge in the area of G5 technology. We see the impact of China, for example, in Africa, driving its businesses into almost all of Africa. They have identified the needs of Africa in the area of infrastructural decay, building of ports, building of rail lines, building of airports and things like that for African countries, areas where the Western countries have ignored over the years. Okay, and then of course, China is having that edge. And because of that, it's able to bring so much of its own industrial products into Africa. Okay, so the competition is becoming very, very stiff. Now we see most countries following the Chinese pattern of having this international conference between Africa and China. We find out of India and China, Russia and Africa, EU countries also trying to develop the same line of business. These are competition, okay? And it's driven by innovation and it's driven by risk-taking. So as the citizens of these countries are trying to carve out for themselves marketplace, a piece of the global marketplace, so also the nations are behind them, trying to make sure that their citizens survive and succeed as they go along. It's not just the Western countries, even in Nigeria, in Africa here, we find our Nigerian companies also in the same kind of competitive spirit across Africa. We find the Dangote company, Dangote Group, for example, that has over 12, 11 cement companies across Africa. We find the Globacom, for example, competing with MTN all over the place and Airtel all over the place, all over Africa. Okay, so all these are very, very, in fact, the banking industry today, most Nigerian banks have taken over most of the West African coast and then the Central African businesses, right? UBA, GT, and all of those is all over the place. Those are all competition. Those are all competitiveness by countries trying to get a piece of the international global market piece. That is what the entrepreneurial spirit is all about. It's about innovation, it's about risk-taking, it's about countries trying to assert themselves in the international global place, okay? So that's what the entrepreneurial spirit is all about. So who is an entrepreneur? Can you help me? Who is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a person who takes the risk of investing his money, time, passion in development of a business or several businesses for purposes of profit. Somebody gave that same definition also. Somebody gave that same definition also. Somebody gave that definition also. That any person who takes the risk, okay, of investing his money. You want to access a loan now, okay? You want to access a loan, it's a risk. Because if you get the loan, it's something that you have to pay back. But you are ready to take that loan to invest, okay? That money, you want to invest your time. Time is precious, remember? Time is money, they say. And then you have passion, because you have a passion for a particular line of business. So you want to take the risk of investing your money, giving of your time, and then your passion to develop a business. That is what an entrepreneur does. That is an entrepreneur, okay? So that singular fact that you have the mindset that, look, I'm ready to take this risk at the end of it to make a profit. So I'm ready to put my money into it. I'm ready to give my time and passion to develop that line of business so that at the end of it, I'll be able to make some profit. That is what an entrepreneur does, okay? Here is another definition of entrepreneur that actually resonates quite a lot with me, yeah? It says an entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. That's the height of it. An entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff. You know what a cliff is, okay? It's a high mountainous place with a very, very deep gully in between, okay? So that's taking the risk, okay? And on the way down, he builds a plane. So whatever it is that your aspiration is, okay, you want to start this line of business and you're ready to take the plunge. And by the time you get down, you've succeeded, you achieved that goal. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a plane, but whatever it is that is your own aspiration. You want to start a business, you want to start a major, let's say, restaurant business, for example. You're ready to take the leap. And by the time you are done taking that leap, that jump, by the time you get to the ground, you have already started a major eatery, major restaurant business, which is what you have set out to do. That's Reid Hoffman's definition of an entrepreneur, okay? So here are some examples of entrepreneurs across the world, okay? The Wright brothers and their aeroplane, they actually typifies Reid Hoffman's definition of an entrepreneur. These two brothers, they are the pioneers of the aeroplane as we know it today. You can see the contraption they built as far back as the 1800s when they wanted to start when they had a vision that it is possible to build an instrument, an equipment that can fly across the world. When they came up with the idea, people laughed at them and said, it is not possible to have a massive metallic object that can be able to fly in space, linking one country to the other, or linking cities together. But they were able to prove it, okay, with this contraption, which they started. And today, the world is the beneficiaries of their vision. They never gave up. People laughed at them and said it wasn't going to be possible. But today, wherever they are, their dreams have been achieved, okay? That is what entrepreneurship, that's what an entrepreneur does. On the screen, you see this gentleman. I don't know how many of you are familiar with him, but he's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a South African American today. He's originally South African, but American today. Elon Musk has a vision of taking space exploration to its limit. He His vision is that in the decades ahead, he wants to take people to Mars, to settle in Mars. And he has started. He is the founder and CEO of SpaceX. SpaceX is an aeronautic engineering company that builds rockets, okay? Rockets that takes people to the International Space Center today. He's a private individual. Most of the space activities that we know are driven by countries, but he, as a private individual, is driving that process now. He has so far taken at least made two missions to the International Space Center. The last one was just about sometime in November, and the people are still up there. They'll be there for the next 6 months. Okay, Tesla, or Elon Musk also is the founder and chairman of Tesla. Tesla is an electric car company. An electrical car company that is fast becoming the fastest selling car in the world today. It is an electric driven car, okay? It is an electric driven car. And the aspiration is that by year 2050, most of the cars on the roads in the world will be electric driven. I'll be posting something. I'll be posting something on the training platform now, so that you have a look at Tesla. You'll have a look at Tesla and see. No, not this one. You see what Tesla has been able to do within the last 1 year. Today, sorry, just a minute. Let me just post something so that I ask you to go to. Please take a minute and go to our training platform. Take a minute and go to our training platform. I've just posted a video, and then assess it, and then look out for Tesla. Look out for Tesla where it is now. Tesla was at the bottom. Tesla was at the bottom of the market capitalization of cars in billions of dollars. I don't know whether you are seeing it. Just go to our platform and assess it. Have you seen it? Did you see it? That's Tesla for you. It started at the bottom. By 2020, it started at the bottom. It started at the bottom of the vehicle capitalization, automobile companies' market value in billions of dollars. But at the end of 2020, it is at the top, beating Toyota, okay, at 550 billion capitalization. But by last month, it capped 800 billion in capitalization. That is what Tesla is all about. It started, nobody recognized it, people were laughing at it, but today, it is the fastest selling automobile company cars in the world today, okay? And by BMW said that by BMW, Mercedes said that by 2030, 50% of its cars will be driven on electric power. Okay, so what does this say? It says that by 2050, oil will be inconsequential for automobile vehicles. This is because they are trying to address the issues of climate change, carbon pollution, ozone depletion, and all of the challenges of pollution that we have in the world today. Most of these cars are being sold in China and in India, because these are the countries worst hit by carbon pollution, carbon emission. Before the advent of face masks, if you go to India and China, at certain periods you have to wear a face mask because of industrial pollution, because of carbon pollution. So these are some of the contributions they are making. So people are beginning to look in another direction. Okay, so when we talk in this country about our oil, we are bragging about we have oil and things like that. In the next 20 years, oil will be worthless. So when we talk about diversification, that is the direction to go. And these are the people people like Elon Musk are those who are driving that process. Okay, what does an entrepreneur do? Somebody gave a very, very cogent definition in the chat just now, when he said, let's see, when he said, yeah, entrepreneur. Okay, when he said, the process of starting a business by identifying a need, maybe in your immediate environment, and you seek to meet that need. Okay, that's a very beautiful definition. An entrepreneur identifies a need that exists, that no existing business addresses, and determines a solution for that need. Okay, it's as if the person who gave that definition saw this paper beforehand. But that is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, he comes into an environment, into a community, and then identifies a need that is not being attended to, that has not been provided any solution, and then tries to address that need. That's what an entrepreneur does. Okay, you come into an environment, for example, and you find people drinking water from a stream, and then you say, what the hell, what's going on here? How come they don't have potable drinking water? And then you choose to dig a borehole, okay, for the community, either to start bottling sachet water or bottled water, or providing a stream of head taps where they can come and fetch the water and pay a small amount of money. That is identifying a problem and then providing solution. That is what an entrepreneur does, okay? That is the first and foremost thing that an entrepreneur does. Sees a problem, sees a vacuum, fills that vacuum. Entrepreneurial activity includes developing and launching new businesses and marketing them, often with the goal of selling the business to turn a profit. An entrepreneur who regularly launches new businesses, starts new ones, is a serial entrepreneur. Additionally, although the term entrepreneur is often associated with startups and small businesses, any founder of any successful household business began as an entrepreneur. So all these are straightforward definitions, but first and foremost, what an entrepreneur does is identifying a problem, a challenge in a community, a society, and then providing solution for that. That's what an entrepreneur does, okay? Right. So some examples of entrepreneurs, we've already spoken about that. We talked about Steve Jobs, the late tech leader who started the Apple computer in the garage with his friend Steve Wozniak and grew to be a dominant tablet, smartphone company and computer company today. I've already talked a lot about this. I talked also about Bill Gates, who founded the founder of Microsoft. You know how he started also from the garage of his parents, and is today one of the world's richest persons. Elon Musk has actually overtaken him. As of December last year, Elon Musk became the world's richest person. That's Elon Musk. Okay, yeah, you can see Elon Musk directly below. He's the founder of SpaceX, an aerospace and rocket manufacturing company, and then the Tesla, an electric car and solar product company. I've just given you an example of what Tesla is doing. Okay, today Elon Musk is the world's richest person. He has overtaken Bill Gates. Okay, so these are the pictures of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, we lost him in 2011, and then of course Bill Gates, the former world's richest person. And then, of course, we have the young man here, Mark Zuckerberg, okay, who is the founder and owner of Facebook. He saw the need for interpersonal communication among people and then developed the social media, social networking service from his Harvard University dormitory in 2004. Today, he has over 2 billion users and over 6 billion in revenue on an annual basis. So that's what entrepreneurs do. They start small. Okay, in 2004, just started with less than, just within the university campus. Within 5 years, had over 500 million users. Today, he has over 2 billion users, and then revenue of over 6 billion. That's what entrepreneurship is all about, okay? So let's look at our Nigerian scenario. I'm sure you are familiar with these people in these pictures. Tony Elumelu, Adenuga, Dangote, Tedola, and Awoshika. These are our popular Nigerian entrepreneurs, okay? Dangote, of course, we're all familiar with his story. We know that he's today's Africa's richest person with interest in cement, sugar, oil, and gas, and a host of other businesses. He's spread all over Africa with over 11 companies, cement companies all over Africa. He's building one of the largest refinery and fertilizer company in the world today, okay? Which is something that that, like I said, is part of the competition to get a pie of the international global market. Yeah, Tony Elumelu made his fortune with in the banking sector, and then of course today he's empowering new entrepreneurs across Africa. This is an example of that. In fact, just last month they advertised, okay, because of the COVID situation, they had been on break, but now they have advertised inviting young entrepreneurs to show interest in assessing their financing from the foundation. Okay, what Tony Elumelu wants to do is to be able to establish the next entrepreneurs across Africa, across the entirety of Africa, where they provide small seed money of about $5,000 to $20,000, mentoring, monitoring, and evaluation, and helping them how to go about and run their own businesses. We're hoping, the hope is that in the next 10, 20 years, part of the major entrepreneurs we have in Africa will be coming from the Tony Elumelu Foundation, as it were. Okay? All right. Successful Nigerian entrepreneurs. I don't know how many of you know this gentleman, but I've seen quite a couple of you using his device. Okay, this gentleman, many might not know him, but many are patronizing his device. Okay, his name is Nnamdi Ezigbo. Nnamdi Ezigbo is the founder and CEO of Slot Nigeria Limited, and then the co-founder of Techno and Infinix phone brands. And this is one of the fastest selling mobile phones in Nigeria today. Fastest selling brand in Nigeria today. Okay. And how did he make it? Nnamdi Ezigbo typifies the average Nigerian graduate. When he finished his service in 1976, he couldn't find a white collar job. So what he did was to join a computer repair shop as an apprentice. And eventually, when he was done with his apprenticeship, he set up his own computer repair shop. Okay, from there he started selling computers and then cell phones. And then in the process of doing that, he noticed that many Nigerians come into his shop carrying at least 2-3 handsets. And I was wondering, why do people have to carry that number of handsets? No, he said so. He thought about it. Why can't we produce a handset with dual SIM? Okay. He approached Nokia phone company, and Nokia said, no, we'd rather produce more handsets and sell more than to produce one with dual SIM and then sell less, which made some sense. So he met a young Chinese chap who just left his work with a mobile phone company. Then he floated the idea, and the guy bought into it, and that's how they set up the Techno company. That, as I say, set up the Techno company, and in no time, it became fast selling. And then of course they migrated also, and they added the Infinix phone brand into it. Today, Techno and Infinix are the fastest selling Nigerian owned phones, okay? Selling less only, higher only than, lower, sorry, than maybe the iPhones and then the Samsung. But in terms of cost, because of its affordability, more and more Nigerians are using these two phones, and which are providing basically the same kind of services that iPhone and Samsung provide today. Okay, so that is some examples of Nigerian entrepreneurs. Okay, see, we also saw the way that that Ezigbo just started and how far he has been able to go with his company, with his business. So that's how it should be. That's what entrepreneurship is all about. Okay, types of entrepreneurship. Forbes, actually, Job Abraham is behind this type of entrepreneurship. He identified 4 types of entrepreneurship. The builder, this one specializes in building empires and infrastructure, massive infrastructure. And then the innovator starts business because of his passion for innovation. Then the specialist. The specialist packages his expertise, brings his expertise into starting his businesses. Then the opportunist. This one sees an existing gap and provides the business to service that gap. That's typically what somebody like Nnamdi Ezigbo just did. And then, of course, the definition we gave earlier about seeing an existing an environment where there is no business existing to satisfy a need, and then providing that. Okay, They give you some examples. The builders, for example, the entrepreneurs in places like South Korea, they typify the builder. Here in South Korea, you find that most of their industries, most of their SMEs, most of their major corporations that we see as massive today started as small businesses. But today, they specialize in these massive industries. If you look at the Samsung industry, Samsung is not just about the cell phone. Samsung is an entire business, okay, that covers home appliances, telecom, TV, and all of those things. Okay, it includes also shipbuilding. That is how massive they are. So many of the cruise ships, oil tankers that we see, okay, are built in South Korea, mostly by Samsung and some of those heavy industries. They specialize in building. Okay, the innovators are people like Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Microsoft Bill Gates. They are innovators. They have a passion for business, okay, for innovating, for creating. Somebody like Steve Jobs, like Microsoft, for example, Bill Gates, has moved away from IT today into medicine. When you hear him discuss vaccines today, you think Bill Gates is a medical person, but that is his line. He's a specialist, expertise. Okay, he takes his expertise to all of those places. Somebody like Mark Zuckerberg, of course, will tell you that it's not in so much for the money, but to develop new ideas, new innovations, and things like that. Okay, so that is the type of entrepreneurs that we have. Job Abrahams, in discussing this type of entrepreneurs, came up with a theory that not every entrepreneur is wired the same way, that every entrepreneur has a different DNA, okay? That every entrepreneur has a different DNA, and the DNAs are identified as these four: the builder's DNA, the innovator, the specialist, and the opportunist. Okay, so which one is your own DNA? Are you driven by innovation? Are you driven as a specialist or an opportunist or as a builder? Okay, that is important that we identify what DNA drives us, so as to be able to know the line of business that we're going to go into, to know the kind of people that will recruit and work with us, to know the kind of strategy we'll adopt. That is what drives an entrepreneur. Okay, so right, so let's look at types of businesses for consideration. There are several types of businesses that an entrepreneur can consider going into in Nigeria. A simple talent or passion can trigger off a business that can be a means of livelihood for an entrepreneur. Okay, these are the type of businesses that we have that you can look into. Most times when people come for this program, they mostly have not made up their minds fully about the kind of business they want to go into. And some make up their mind, but by the time they see this line of businesses, they choose to change their minds about it. So we have things like fashion. We know the place of fashion in Nigeria. We know how prominent it is. But for this COVID situation, we know the way Nigerians on a week-to-week basis are out there displaying their fashion sense and all of that in weddings, in ceremonies, and all sorts of activities which pervade the country on a week-to-week basis. Then, of course, we have farming, agriculture, we have small and medium, small-scale manufacturing. We have catering, which is hospitality, event management. Buying and selling, of course, is an item, but not purely just in terms of buying and selling. If you're buying and adding value, that will be acceptable, but not just going to market and buying fabric or food and coming to sell. No, anything that you do, you have to add value to it before you sell. Then event management, which is also part of hospitality. Animal husbandry, we're trying to encourage ranching to stop the incidence of herder farmers clash and modern farming processes in the country. School businesses, daycare, nursery, photography, publishing, cleaning, dry cleaning, cosmetics, health services. All these are different types of businesses which members can consider if you haven't quite made up your mind what you want to do. Okay, so that's what we advise that you look at. Then vocational skills. These basically are a little bit overlooked, but we want to emphasize the need for us to look more and more into these vocational skills, okay? Because in the country today, we find like a place like Abuja for the next 50 years will be under construction. But when you go to most of the construction sites, what you find is that most of the technicians, most of the skilled workers are not Nigerians. Many of them are from the West Coast countries of Togo, Benin, Ghana, and places like that. Not many Nigerians are going into vocational skills. So these are areas that we really need to, we'd like to encourage our participants to see if they can think about setting up vocational schools where people can be trained to acquire those skills and then be able to contribute to our Nigerian construction industry. So issues like electrician, plumbing, carpentry, masonry, they are very, very important areas which we can look into. Okay, all right. Before we look at things to consider before going into business, let's once again open the floor so that if there are any questions that you want to ask, you can ask the question before we proceed. Okay, that will be the last stretch, the last home stretch. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask the question so that before we proceed. Thank you. Yeah, Idara, Kudofia. Idara, I can see you are unmuted. Yeah, good morning. We're hearing you. Yeah, Idara, go ahead.
Please, thank you for please, I missed the beginning. So I missed. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I missed the beginning. I missed the beginning. How will I be the introduction part of this trip? Hello?
Well, you have to go and read, you really have to go and read it up now because I've done that 2 times already. So we'll have, you have the material, you have the video,
Copies.
you have the YouTube recording.
Okay, we have a video
watch.
and the material to.
Yes, you have the hard copy also.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can always listen later. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So far, I've enjoyed the training.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, Blessing, Rome. Yeah, unmute your mic, Blessing. Unmute your air. Okay, good.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Thank you for this wonderful training. I'm enjoying it so far.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to make a comment about the examples that you have used.
Yeah.
I would suggest, if I may, that we should focus more on our entrepreneurs and their successes, more homegrown entrepreneurs and their successes, because that would mean more to us than, I mean, Elon Musk, I don't care whether he's going to space or whatever, that is really, you know, space is far, far away from Nigeria, as you know. Or Mark Zuckerberg, that one is in America. We want to know more about how people like Dangote started. Do you understand what I'm saying? How, you know, you should emphasize more on that. And also, some of the businesses, you should place more emphasis on some of the businesses, homegrown, agricultural, you know, the successes that we've had, maybe in Abuja, Lagos, or wherever. That is what I wanted to suggest.
Good, thanks. Yeah, you know, when you are running a program like this, there's no way you sit down and localize it. You just have to have an international perspective because we want to take a cue from what's happening across the world. We're part of a global community, and there's no way we can pull ourselves away and be in some kind of isolation. We have to look at what's happening and then what we should also aspire to do. And that's why we gave those kind of background. gave the international background, what is happening across the world, and then came back home to look at what our own people are doing across the world. You know, that's why we looked at our own entrepreneurs. We've looked at people like who are least known, like Nnamdi Ezigbo, who just started barely around 1996, and then today has one of the fastest selling phones in Africa today, competing as it were with the iPhones and the Samsung, which is a major accomplishment, really. So we're not denigrating on playing down on our own accomplishment. And then, of course, emphasizing what Tony Elumelu and his foundation are doing for entrepreneurship across Africa, which is receiving a whole lot of accolades all over the place. I did mention also about how our companies are competing, as it were, in Africa and across the world. Dangote and his main companies all over. And then, of course, our banking sector that have got crisscross, virtually taking the whole of West Africa and then the South African market. Okay, we have UBS, GT, and all of ASEX buying up companies. In fact, one of the biggest banks in Kenya today is a Nigerian bank, and they are protesting that Nigerians are taking over their country. So we are really doing well. You know, so we just have to at least make those comparisons to see that, yeah, Nigerians are trying, they are homegrown, and they are doing very well. And we're trying to see that in the next 10 years, with what Tony Elumelu is doing, Africans will definitely take hold of our society and community. But we definitely have to keep making those comparisons. That's why we try to make those comparisons. It's okay? All right, thanks. All right, any other question? All right, so let's go back and continue with the last segment of, last segment of this paper. We'll try and all right. Okay, so we'll take the last stretch of the paper now. Things to consider before going into business. Remember I said when we started that before we go into any business, there are certain things that you need to consider. You don't look at your friend, your colleague, and neighbor who is into a line of business. And because you see him succeeding along that line of business and think that, no, I can also go into that same line of business and succeed. Okay, there are certain things that he may have taken into consideration before starting that business and before the kind of success you notice him having. So it's important that we also sit down, okay? Tomorrow you'll be looking at feasibility studies. You'll be looking at feasibility studies and then business plan. My colleague who will take that paper tomorrow will tell you about the things that you need to consider before going into any business. So this one is just to like preliminary, okay? So the first set of questions you'll be asking is there a demand for the business? Okay, the line of business you want to go into now, let's say you want to start a bakery, for example. The question you need to ask is there a need? Is there a demand for that line of business? Do people actually need bread and bakery foods around here, confectionaries and things like that? So you need to make that determination, okay? Because many businesses fail simply because entrepreneurs set up a business that sold products and services that people don't need, okay? You might just come into an environment and say, okay, yes, I think people need bread here. And then you set up that business. But unfortunately, you might find that by the time you start producing, you find that they couldn't keep bother about bread. They couldn't be bothered about bread and things like that, okay? So you need to have an idea. You need to really ask those questions, okay? Or they set up a business that produce or sold products that people needed but cannot afford. Remember I gave an example of somebody who came into an environment and saw that there is a need for potable drinking water, okay? And then he decided to sink a borehole. Of course, people need that kind of service there. They need the potable drinking water there. But then he decided to start producing sachet water and bottled water. A sachet water, a sachet water costs 10 naira. Bottled water costs maybe 50 or 100 naira. The people in that environment cannot afford that. But if he had dug the borehole and then created tap heads where you can sell a bucket of water for 10 naira, people will be able to afford it. Okay? They'll be able to afford it more than a sachet water for 10 naira. You can compare a bucket of water at 10 naira and a sachet of water at 10 naira. Which one will be more affordable? People would rather buy the bucket of water for 10 naira, not the sachet water. But where your own business strategy is to sell sachet water and bottled water, then of course you produce something people need, but they cannot afford. So those are two things that we need to have at the back of our mind when we are doing something like that, okay? You need to ask the question, are there other people doing similar business, or are you bringing something new to the table? Okay, you might come into an environment and then you see, oh, okay, there is a bakery here. Okay, and then you decide to go and set up a bakery. Are you going to bring another type of bread? Are you going to bring banana bread, coconut bread, or what kind of bread are you bringing? Wheat bread. But if it's the same regular kind of bread that we all know, then of course you're likely to run into some problem. Unless you are bringing something new, then find something else to do. If you are starting a business in an area where the market is already saturated, then you might fail, which is basically the same point with the first one. So it's important that you do some research, you do some feasibility studies to find out areas where the competition is not properly serving the customer, and then position your business to fill the gap. Okay, so it's important that you always do your feasibility studies, do your research, and find out where businesses are not serving the customers adequately, and then you can see how you fill that gap. Okay, as an entrepreneur, you have to work hard to differentiate your products and bring something different to the market that no one has ever seen. That is your unique selling point. It's called USP, your unique selling point or unique selling proposition. Okay, here I'd like to give the example of peak milk and 3 crown milk, for example. We're familiar with the place of peak milk in Nigeria. Peak milk has been the dominant milk, okay, evaporated milk that we've had in this country. They dominated the market since the 60s, 70s, and 80s, okay, until one overnight, okay, this milk, what do you call it, came on board. Is it? Yeah, Cowbell. Yeah, I think Cowbell or one of these milk came on board and decided that they were coming into the market. Yeah, 3 crown milk, sorry, 3 crown milk came into the market and started producing milk in sachet and powdered form. People laughed at them. They thought, how can they be able to compete with peak? But you know that peak milk came in can, evaporated, and sold for like 50 naira per can at that time. And then of course, 3 crown came with sachet milk, okay, sachet milk and powdered, and was selling at 10 naira. Of course, because of the low income, the number of people at the low income levels, many people started patronizing them, okay? And it became a household name, okay? Because if you are using a peak milk, if you open a can of milk, that means you have to finish it unless you have refrigeration. How many people had light and refrigeration at that point in time? But with the sachet milk, the powder sachet milk, you open it, you can use it for about 5, 6 or so cups. And where there's still sunlight, you just fold it and then drop it. The next day you continue using it. So in no time, 3 crown became a dominant brand in the market. And today we find out almost all the milk companies, the dairy companies have their own powdered milk, to the extent that we have cans, big cans of powdered milk today. And all of that is because of the unique selling point of 3 crown milk, okay? Because they came with an entirely different proposition, a unique selling point, away and different from the liquid evaporated milk that Peak was selling. Peak today also has its own powdered milk, selling at very, very low rate and trying to remain competitive also. So that is what you do as an entrepreneur. Okay, if you have to go to a line of a business that's already existing, make sure that you're bringing something new, something unique. Okay, find out something that makes your business stand out is critical for the survival of the enterprise. Okay, so things to consider: determine what needs are out there. What are the needs that are out there? What businesses exist to satisfy those needs? If there's no business currently satisfying those needs, it could mean that no one has thought about it. Okay, that there's no enough market to make setting up that business viable, or that the cost of carrying out the business in that environment could be expensive. So you need to find out what the needs are out there, and then why some businesses not carrying out those line of businesses, so that you don't just plug into it and then run into problem at the end of the day. So how do you determine what the needs are out there? How do you determine what needs are out there? You need to ask questions. You'll be surprised what the kind of answers you find. You'll be surprised what you find people needs are. Okay, when you ask the questions, people will be able to come out and tell you what their needs are. Don't just jump into the market and start providing things they don't need. Okay, you could decide to draw up and administer simple questionnaires which people can respond to, or you can use social media to get feedback. The social media is one of the most versatile means of generating information today, so we can decide to use that. You can read journals and online sites in your environment, your community, and then of course you can look around and observe. Okay, you'll be surprised what you are able to find from those observations. We can take a lesson from Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. What they did in building their companies today was through observation. Through observation, I've seen what people needed within that environment. Okay. There's an issue about sorry. I noticed somebody made a comment about techno, about Samsung starting. Sorry, it's not coming up again. All right, somebody made an observation about Samsung starting a dual SIM card. I'm not sure. I think we might need to check about that, because Samsung definitely didn't start a dual SIM card. It was started by Techno and his people. Right, okay. All right, so barriers, main barriers before starting a small business. I did say when we started this course that whatever it is that we do in life, we are likely to run into some hurdles, run into some barriers, some challenges. So in starting your own business, in starting a business, there's every likelihood that you might also run into some barriers along the way. So we need to have that at the back of our mind, anticipate it and preempt it before we run into it, okay? So let's look at some of the challenges that we might run into, some of the barriers we might run into when we want to start our business. First and foremost, money. Okay? We're in this program because we need money. We need a loan to be able to access to start our business. So money is a very, very critical resource an entrepreneur needs to start a business. Okay, probably the most critical barrier to starting a small business. Exactly how much do you need to start? And where do you get it from? How much do you need? How much do you need, and where do you get it from? These are important things that we have to have at the back of our mind. So money is very, very critical and it's important. Okay, secondly, lack of knowledge. Many small businesses fail, not because of lack of capital, but because the entrepreneurs have little knowledge of the business. So for some people, it's not so much the money, it's not so much the capital, but the information, the knowledge about the business, okay? They know very little about the business, but they are entranced, they are interested, they get carried away by that line of business. But then you need to have some basic information, you need to be knowledgeable, you need to know something about that line of business, okay? You don't see it because somebody is running a sophisticated IT company, a business hall, and then you go into that line of how much IT, how much about IT do you know? How are you able to manage that line of business? Okay, you need to have some information. Okay, when are the peak and low seasons for your business? There are certain businesses that have low and peak and low peak businesses. Okay, if you are in agri, for example, you know that tomato business, if you are into tomato farming, you know that there are peak periods for you. You know that there are low seasons for it. So you know when you go in and farming. Okay, you know when to go into that productive activities. Okay, there might be a glut at certain periods of time. Okay, so you need to know the kind of preservation system you need to have. Okay, you need to know when the market is booming. You need to know when the market is there's very little market for it. These are important things that you need to do. Okay, then when there's certain change in the environment can affect business, government policies and taxes. Okay, this is another critical area. We need to have a monitoring system in place. In our country, for example, there is always a lot of changes that happen within the business environment. Government policies keep changing. Not too long ago, sometime last year, for example, government banned the importation of maize. Okay, and many people went to the banks and collected money and went into maize farming. with the mind of filling that gap provided by the ban on maize to be able to meet the requirements in the poultry industry. Okay, but because this maize was not forthcoming in good time, the poultry farmers started complaining that they were not having feeds for their birds. Okay, and then government lifted the ban on the importation of maize. Suddenly, those that went to the capital market, the banks to take loans, found that their products were still in the farm, and the government had lifted the ban on maize. And by the time their own products was coming, the price of maize had crashed, and they could not get enough money to be able to pay back the business. So changes in government policy could be very, very critical. Okay, so these are areas that we'll have to be very, very mindful. Not long ago, we saw the changes in taxes. Okay, VAT changing from 5% to 7.5%, stamp duty changing from 5% to 6% and things like that. So all these are things that we need to be very, very mindful about to be able to know how we handle them. Okay, are your products perishable? If your products are perishable, then of course you have to know that you should be able to have some kind of preservation system so that when the products are not taken off immediately, you know how to be able to preserve them. And these are very critical, especially in farm produce that have lifespan, shelf lifespan. Okay, you have to have a way of preserving them. If not, you have the challenge of losing most of your products. Okay, how long does it take to produce your goods? And will it affect your ability to meet your customers' needs? These are things that you also have to be very, very mindful about. Okay, the cycle of production and then the demands of your customers. You have to be able to synchronize them in such a way that as you're producing, there are off-takers who are buying them off you. If not, you might sit down and produce and find that you don't have the customers to come and pick them up. So these are important things that you need to know. Knowledge is very, very key and critical anytime we are going into any line of business. Okay, determination. Okay, you need to develop the courage of a bulldog and maintain the determination that will enable you to smash through obstacles, as there will be many along the way. Okay, we need to be very, very determined if we want to go into any entrepreneurial business at all. Okay, like I said, you are bound to run into certain challenges. Okay, the moment you run into the first hurdle and then you simply put your hands on your head and give up, then of course you are not going to go far. Okay, you need determination, you need to remain focused. When you fail, you need to pick yourself up. When you face rejection, you pick yourself up and face another direction. Okay, find new solutions, new strategies. Yeah, you will always find that there are those who will be interested in your line of business. So that even if you don't succeed at this point in time, if you fail rejection at this point in time, you will be able to find an alternative way of going about it. You have to show that determination. You don't just give up. Okay, if at the first hit of challenge or failure, you pack up and then turn your back, then of course you are not ready for that line of business. Remember, like I said, okay, entrepreneurship is a long haul, it's a marathon, it's not a short sprint, okay, because you are definitely going to face some of those challenges. Remember, I gave the example of Bill Gates. Okay, when he was starting his Microsoft business, he approached IBM Machine and told them his vision. IBM was into mainframe computers. Mainframe computers are massive computers, computing systems that occupy a whole floor of an office. And this young man comes and says, look, my dream is that I will be able to put microcomputers on every desk in every office and every home in America. And they laughed him off. And that is one of the greatest regrets of IBM to today, because Microsoft did exactly, Bill Gates did exactly as he said. Okay, there are so many examples like that. The Wright brothers, for example, people laughed at them and said there was no way they would be able to create a plane, but they did today. They did, and today we are all beneficiaries of it. Fear, our greatest enemy. Fear is also a major barrier to starting business. Fear is one of the greatest barriers to people starting a business. The question they ask is, what if I fail? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I'm rejected? And people say no. So what? So what if you fail? That's you. If you fail at this point, you pick up. Okay, you pick up and keep going. Thomas Edison, for example, tried building the electric bulb, tried more than 10 times before he was able to develop the filament with the help of some African-American chap. Okay, that is determination. I give the example of Bill Gates. Honda also went through the same in China. In Japan. When they started, they laughed them off and said they won't be able to make any euro. But today, Honda is one of the major brands, car brands in the world today. For us in Africa and Nigeria especially, it's a major challenge because fear is one of we have not been able to overcome fear. As Africans, as Nigerians, we have not been able to overcome fear. Fear is endemic to us. We are superstitious. We fear the dark. We fear the night. We fear everything. Right here in Zuma Rock, in Suleja here, no Nigerian has been able to scale that mountain. But some few years ago, some American chap came into the country and scaled over it. There is a hotel built beside Zuma Rock today. Right from when it was built and furnished, nobody has stayed in it because of superstition. It's a carcass today because of fear. The Western world has been able to overcome fear. That's why they've been able to go to the moon. That's why they're able to send people to the International Space Center. But we can't because of fear. Until we're able to overcome our fear, we will not be able to make much of a progress. And that's the reality, whether we like it or not. So fear is our greatest enemy, and we have to do something about it for us to be able to make any progress, okay? Lack of support. That is another major area where we have challenges. Many small businesses lack support in the critical areas of need. They include areas of funding. Few financiers are willing to support small business startup. I'm sure as you are starting up, many of you must have approached those you think are wealthy around your community, those who you think are well-to-do, see them changing cars, buying new properties and things like that. You approach them and say, see, can you give me some money? I want to start this line of business. And the kind of response you might get is that, sorry, I don't have money. But you see them doing a whole lot of things every now and then. So support, financial support is a major challenge in that area. Legal and regulatory support, difficulty in fulfilling registration requirement for businesses. Like I say, in the next few days, a colleague of mine will come to look at business law, where we'll look at registration requirement for companies and then compliance requirement. But this is another major area. You know, in Nigeria today, we are talking so much about the ease of doing business, and that the ease of doing business is actually being eased up substantially now. You are able to register a company without necessarily going through your lawyers, and within 24 hours, you'll be able to get the company registered. But previously, it was a major hurdle, okay? Could take you up to 6 months trying to register a company, name search, all this and all that, the payments, the lawyers having to do all of those things, okay? So it took a while of a time. But now, at one-stop shops like the NIPC, you're able to get your company registered, even without going to CAC on your handset device, in your home, in your room, you are able to start up, register your own company. So these are things that are being looked at. But these areas have always been major areas of a challenge that we had in the country previously. Okay, so now we're on the final leg of this paper, sources of funding, sources of funding small businesses. What are the sources of funding small businesses? First, equity. You have loans, you have grants, you have cooperative loans, and then crowdfunding. So these are some identified areas of funding, looking at 5 of them. So let's start with equity. What's equity? Equity is an investment made in the shares of a business. It is made with the understanding that the investor will get a return on their business, an appreciation in the capital that they have invested. Okay, so anytime you go to the capital market, for example, and buy shares, that's equity, that's buying equity. Okay, if a company decides to float an IPO, okay, and then of course invite investors to buy into that business, that is equity business, that's equity investment. Okay, and then of course the understanding is that when you buy shares from a company, and then the company will now use the monies generated from these shares to now set up the business and run the business. And as it becomes profitable, it begins to pay dividend, begins to pay shares to the investors. Okay, so equity, it is long time. It gives the business, the entrepreneurs time to set up the business, nurture it, and then become productive before it takes root and then becomes productive and begins to pay shares to the investors. What are the sources of equity funding? Equity comes from savings, comes from partners, comes from investors, comes from family. Savings, let's look at savings. If you want to start an enterprise, you should learn to set aside savings from whatever little resources you have. Savings take a lot of effort, discipline, and sacrifice to be able to put money aside to start a business. That, of course, we're all familiar with this. In the country today, how much do you earn? How much are you going to be able to save? Okay, we said today that the minimum wage is 30,000 naira, which most states are even beginning to repudiate. They are not willing to pay that 30,000 naira. Let's even assume that they pay the 30,000 naira. How much will you be able to set aside? How much will you be able to feed? How much will you be able to transport? How much will you be able to meet your home requirement? So before you now talk about setting something aside. But then, like we said, savings takes a lot of effort, discipline, and sacrifice. So the advice we always like to give is that no matter how small, try to see what you can set aside, okay, for the rainy day, because that is critical and important, because those little savings that you make, either through your own efforts in banks or in cooperative society and things like that, these are some of the seed money that you might require tomorrow when you want to start your own business. So it's something that you can look at. Partners, these are people who might share the same interests with you, share the same views and aspirations with you, who can also bring their own savings and then contribute to that line of business in the form of equity, so that when the business becomes profitable, at least they are also driving, gaining from the shares they have invested. Investors, of course, these are people who put funds into something in order to get money money on they have invested. Could go to the capital market to do that, or could, if your business is being managed by any of these facility managers, of course, they'll be able to invest in it, and then they'll be able to draw from it in due course. Then there's this, we identified angel investors. These are wealthy private individuals who invest in business in exchange for some equity. The good thing about angel investors is that most times they're actually mentors, okay? They identify individuals who have very good business ideas, and then they try to mentor them, try to support them, helping them, guiding them, providing them business ideas and things like that. Okay, there's this program on TV called the Dragon Den. The Dragon Den is a group of investors who sit in a committee or in a conclave as a panel, and young people come in to pitch their entrepreneurial ideas. Okay, they provide some of those kind of financial support if they believe strongly in that line of business. Or these ones could be off the same. And then, of course, identify the kind of business you are trying to do, and then come in and then provide the finances for you. They don't come troubling you about their money, but they help guide you, so that by the time the business takes full root and then becomes stable, then they'll be able to also draw on their investment in that line of business. Then family and friends. I did say initially that most of us really, when we're starting businesses, the first set of people that we approach are our family members and then friends. You know, I've had that experience. My kids have come to me. Now, one in particular, right from graduation, he has set up like 2 companies already with his friends, and virtually every now and then we're giving them all manners of money for them to start their own business, to see how far they can go. They've tried their hands, burned their hands, lost money and all of that, but that is how most people start. Okay, so family and friends are usually the first source of investment for most young startups, and I'm sure many of you have experienced that also. Okay, some of course succeed, others like my son didn't, but he's trying his hands again, some other things. He just got a job and then in the bank, worked for like 1 year, and then decided to leave the job effective some few days ago, starting another line of business. They're so impatient. That's the kind of young people we have today, but what do? They have their lives to live. All right, loans. That's why we're here, for example. We're in this training because we want to access a loan, okay? A business loan is money given to an entrepreneur to finance the purchase of an asset or fund the business's recurrent expenditure. Loans can either be interest-bearing or non-interest bearing. In the former, the borrower and the lender agree on the rate. The loan is tenured for a specific period, and at the end of the tenure or at maturity, the borrower must repay the loan to the lender together with interest that's accrued. So that's typically what a loan is all about, okay? You borrow money to start a business, okay? There are 2 types of loans that we know familiar with in the country today. The interest-bearing loan. The one that we are trying to assess now, the Agmis loan scheme, is an interest-bearing loan. It's 9% interest from this year, okay? It is collateral-free, but it has a tenure of 7 years, okay? At the end of the, when it's matured, a 7-year maturity, you are expected to have paid back both the interest and the principal amount. That is what the loan is all about. Then there's the non-interest bearing loan. These are Islamic, based on Islamic principles of banking. They don't collect, they don't charge you interest, but there is a sharing formula for the profit that is derived from the loan. And if there are losses, there are ways also they share the losses across both the borrower and the lender. The lender and the borrower, sorry. Yeah, so that's what loan is all about, okay? It's money given to an entrepreneur to purchase asset or to finance the recurring business. Okay, right. Loans can be accessed from the following sources: from banks, banks like the microfinance bank, commercial deposit banks. These are sources of loans. Commercial banks and some other microfinance banks, of course, like I said, the interest rate is so prohibitive. But the Master Microfinance Bank, the Agmis loan scheme, is specifically targeted at SMEs and then agribusinesses at collateral-free levels, at low interest rates, at generous maturity period, and then of course the whole essence is trying to promote, like we say, diversification of the economy and employment generation. Loans can also be gotten from partners who could decide to loan you money to start your business, which they also have interest in. Then the partners agreements, the partners agree on the tenure of the loan and when the loan will pay. You sit down, write an MOU and agree on the terms of providing the loan. Okay, right. Grants. What are grants? Grants are funds given to small businesses by donor organizations. Usually the donor does not retain an interest in the business. However, to ensure that the money is actually being used for the purpose intended, the donor will set up processes to ensure that the project is being properly implemented. Most donor agencies actually, some don't really give you the money. They could provide you with the equipment, the implements, and then the expertise to help to guide, to mentor you. And those that give money might decide to procure the items and come and install. And most of them also are more involved in social enterprise projects where they support NGOs and faith-based organizations and the like. Okay, in businesses where they have interest, where they believe that these businesses will be beneficial to the community, they come in to make those provisions. Okay, grants can be given by government organizations, development partners, family trusts, not-for-profit organizations, wealthy individuals. We have such organizations like the DFID, for example, the USAID, and then quite a number of faith-based organizations providing grants to individuals and people. And some major companies and corporations in the country are known to also provide grants to people. Right. See, here are some sources of grants in Nigeria. SMIDEN, the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, they provide grants to many SMEs in the country. DFID, like I said, Department of Finance and International Development, it's a UK-based agency that supports quite a number of programs in the country. Shell Livewire Fund. Shell Livewire is actually driven by the Shell International Oil Company, mostly operating in the Niger Delta area, where they provide grants to young men and women who want to start their own businesses, try to encourage them to move away from the life of militancy and then destruction of oil installations here and there. Okay, where they identify that, yes, these are viable lines of businesses which the individuals want to go into. Such grants can be accessed from the Shell Livewire funds, and they are doing quite substantially well also. The T.Y. Danjuma Foundation is doing a lot of work in the Northeast area, where it's providing support to the IDPs, providing support to schools, the families, feeding and things like that. It's doing quite a lot of work, commendable work, building hospitals, clinics, and the likes for people in the Northeast region that have been devastated by the Boko Haram insurgents in the last 10 years. Bank of Industry also, MTN Foundation, all these institutions are providing grants in the country as we know it today, okay? All right, cooperative loans. A cooperative society is an independent group of people who come together to offer mutual support and cooperation to each other. Individuals within the cooperatives contribute money, and these funds are either used to fund activities of the cooperative or given out as loans to fund individual businesses of interested members of the cooperative. Cooperative societies are one of the most popular organs we have in most organizations in the country today. Cooperative societies mostly took root in the western part of this country and grew up to be very, very prominent part of financing and funding in the country. In fact, one of the main cooperative societies, as we know, it grew up to be a major bank in the country, subsumed into one of these major banks that we have today. And many of the cooperative societies that we have in organizations have grown up to be microfinance banks on their own, okay? I know many cooperative societies in many organizations that are providing loan to those organizations. So they could be very, very powerful institutions on their own. And most cooperative societies are made up of individual staff within those organizations who contribute money to the cooperative society, and then the cooperative society uses those funds to either fund collective activities like maybe buying land, houses, and then selling to members, or providing the members, individual members, with loans which they use in maybe buying cars, hiring houses, paying school fees, and the like. So that's what cooperative loan does for people in organizations. And these are very, very key and critical areas of providing financing and funding for people who want to start their own businesses. Finally, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, these are new initiatives. These are new processes of raising funds from individuals, mostly through internet. Okay, we have quite a lot of talks about crowdfunding across the years. Some of them have turned out to be very, very nasty, in the sense that they turn out to be Ponzi schemes like the MMM and the rest, but others are doing very, very well. And many of them are major corporations today. We have the Forever Products, we have the Alliance, M Global. All these are crowdfunding strategies, okay, where they combine not just crowdfunding in terms of bringing people in and downlines and things like that, but also they have product lines which people are also able to buy, home supplements, drug supplements, home appliances, and a whole lot of other things they sell along the line, like in the Forever Products, and then the Alliance Products, which is driven mostly from a Filipino group of companies. Okay, and of course, even as private individuals, many young men, the crowd9 funding strategy, for example, are into internet funding schemes, where they are able to bring up products on the system and then, of course, pitch them. And those who are interested in those lines of products are able to buy into it by contributing money and building that line of business. And as the business grows, those of them who have contributed money on the downlines are able to be paid money from it to start their own other businesses or invest in other lines of businesses. So crowdfunding is a very, very important line of sources of funding today. Many people are making a lot of money out of it. I know many people in the M Global, that's the Alliance Global, for example, who are doing very, very well, very, very well in that line of business. So it's another source of funding, major source of funding we have in the country today. All right, so we have come to the end of our paper. It's taken a little while. We'll appreciate your patience. Thank you very much for being a part of our day. We'll open the floor now so that we'll take any questions that you have, and then so that we'll run up for the day. We know the day is far taken, so that will allow you to go about your other businesses. Thank you very much. So open the floor, and then if you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you. If you have any question, you can unmute and ask, please. Yeah. All right. Techno, you missed her name again. Peace, that's peace, right? Yeah, okay, Madam Chinwe. Madam Chinwe? Okafo, yeah, Madam Okafo, thanks. You have any question? Can see you're unmuted.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please. My question is, you said that this loan, yes, I have a question. It's going to run, this loan is for 7 years period.
Sorry? You're off?
I'm back now.
All right, can hear you, can see you now. So your question?
Now.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
My question is that, did you say that this loan runs for 7 years duration?
Yes, it does. That's the maturity period, 7 years. Collateral free, 9% interest rate.
Okay. So the payment starts when? Immediately, or?
There is a moratorium of 1 year. It's business specific. Okay, most of it 1 year, some could be 18 months. So, but it's specific to the line of business.
Okay, that's my question.
All right. Any other question? Elisha, Yakubu? Elisha, I can see you're muted. You have a question? Madam Judith, Mr. Richard, any question? Yeah, okay, there's a new person. Folashade Ogumbi, you have a question, man?
Yeah, yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, at a point, my network played funny. I don't know if we can have the lecture later to study.
Certainly, it will be on the platform. It will be on the WhatsApp platform. You have the YouTube, and then you have the hard copy.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Very great job. Eh?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other question? Elisha Yakubu, you are muted. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Madam Judith. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Madam Judy.
No, I have no question. It's just that I have not been able to do the quiz because I cannot log in. I don't know why.
She can log in on the quiz. Okay, we'll try it so that the IT man will give you instruction what to do. Okay, we'll post it again. We'll repost it again so that you redo it. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
So.
Thank you.
All right. So if there is no any other question, let me thank you immensely.
And what I want.
Okay. Somebody is talking. It's Judith. Okay, she has off. Okay. If there's no any other question, let me thank you immensely for sharing the better part of your day with us. Tomorrow we'll continue the lectures. Tomorrow we have feasibility studies and business plan. My colleague is Macho will be here with you, and I'm sure it will be another very interesting lecture. So thank you, and then Happy New Year once again. And then we hope we'll have a very, very fruitful week with you this week. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day ahead of you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay,
right. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.